All right, this is Daf Yomi in motion, number 785. Today we're going to learn Daf Samech Hey in Metzia, and we're going to be speaking about different Sugei, Ribis, B'Keniya, Ubeschirus. More will start on Daf Samech Hey Amid Aleph, around 7 lines down. Omar Abaye, Hayman Demasik Sugei the Ribis b'chavrei. This person who had made up with his friend to collect Ribis for a loan that he had given him, he was now going to collect the Ribis part. So v'ka'ozle chite be'arba grive bezuza b'shuka. So he had to collect a zuz worth of Ribis, and this zuz worth of Ribis is equal to arba saw, 4 saw of chita, of wheat. And so when he went to pay the Ribis, he was going to give him 4 saw of wheat for a zuz, but he gave him 1 extra saw, so it's like the zuz plus a little bit. Ihu chamisha, he gave him 5. So we gave him a little bit more than the normal, the Ribis that he owed him. So, ki mafkinen mine, arba mafkinen mine. When based in, according to the sheet of Rabbi Elazar that we learned, it was machlokas Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yochanan, whether basin can extract from the malva after the malva had already taken Ribis, can the basin get it back and give it back to the lova? So Rabbi Elazar's sheet was that they can, and that's the way we paskin also. So he said, when Basin will then go and get this money back from the Malva, the Zuz, so how much are they going to take back from him? Are they going to take the 4 saw of Chita, because that's how much 1 Zuz is worth 4 saw of Chita? How much Ribis they originally stipulated between themselves? Or will he take back the 5 saw that the Loba actually gave him? So ki mafkina mine abo mafkina mine. They're only going to take 4 saw of chita away from the malva because that's going to be considered the Ribis that he collected. Mine. Idach zulehu deka muzil gabe. And the 5th saw, which the Loba gave, was like he wanted to show his appreciation. He threw in a little bit extra. That was just a little bit. He wanted to be generous with him. And he therefore depreciated the value of a saw and just gave him a little bit extra, and as like a little bit of a present. Rava Omar Chamisha Mafkina Mine, and Rava is cholik and says no. When the basin will collect the Ribis from the malva, he's going to collect all 5 saw of the chita. Because why? Because originally when the Malva took this, these 5 saw, it was for the purpose of collecting the Ribis, because they stipulated, and he now went to collect it, and he collected. The fact that the Lover gave him a little bit extra, it was still being given over b'tayras Ribis. So that's why Rabbi Rava holds that's why he still basically will collect all the 5. Because it was all collected as Ribis, and Basin has the right to retract the Ribis from the Malva. Omar Baye, Hayman Demasik Arbo Zuze de Ribisa Bechavrei. This person that again he was Toveya, the person who owed him Ribis. He was Toveya him the Ribis. So he went to collect it. So, Hayman the Masik Arbo Zuze the Ribisa Bechavrei. So v'yoyivle glima b'gavayu. So he owed him 4 zuz of Ribis, and he gave him a coat that was going to be equal to 4 zuz. That would be just given over for the Ribis. That would Basin is going to collect this 4 zuz from the Malva. What does he collect? Do they collect the monetary 4 zuz, or do they take away the gleam of the jacket that was actually given as the ribis? Ki mafkinin minei, arbo mafkinin minei, glima lo mafkinin minei. The shita here is that they're going to only take back the monetary 4 zuz of the ribis, and the jacket that was actually given for the 4 zuz, they're not going to take back. They're going to let him have it, minei. And Rashi says that when he gave that it was almost like a mekach. It was almost like buying it. You're giving over the. He gave over the. It was like the money was given by the malva, and then a jacket was given back to him in return. It was almost like a mekach. So therefore, you can keep it since it's an object which is tangible. You can actually hang on to it, and all you have to do is give back the money. The arba mafkina mine, glima lo mafkina mine. Rava is cholik, omar glima mafkina mine. No, he comes up with a new shita that you actually have to take the glima that was given to him, and that's what you have to collect back from the malva. So my time of why? Ki hechi de lo leimru glima de michse v'kai glima de rebisahu. So that people shouldn't say, oh, that jacket that the person is putting on and wearing, that's a jacket of Ribis that he got from Ribis. It's there all the time as a reminder that this person took Ribis. We don't want that. So it actually has to be given back. And that's like a new halacha, because usually we look at the of the value. The monetary value of the Ribis is what has to be returned, but in a case like this, the actual object has to be returned. Haiman demasik tresar zuze Ribis bechari. Here, the person was here. He was being toveya. He was coming to collect the Ribis that a person owed him, and the person owed him 12 zuz of Ribis. So instead of the lobo would pay the 12 zuz to the malva, he said, I have a chutzah that I'll let you rent out, and that'll be the way I pay you back. You won't have to pay me. That'll be the way that you pay me my Ribis. Chutzah was, he needs 12 zuz of Ribis paid back. The chutzah, however, was usually rented out for 10 zuz. And here, so the malva says, you know what, it's usually rented out for 10 zuz, but I'll rent this chutzah out, and that'll cover your Ribis that you owe me. The 12 zuz of Ribis that you owe me, that'll cover it. He did that. So he rented this chutzah for 12 zuz, and that was his Ribis. Now, when Beis Din goes to get back the Ribis, which according to Rabbi Elazar, they go and they can extract the Ribis that was paid. We're on Daf Samach Hey Amid Aleph. Right, it's around from the top, around 20 lines down from the top. And we're talking about different types of Ribis, whether Ribis b'hakno, Ribis b'schirus. So this person now so we gave him his chutzah like he gave him his chutzah, which is usually rented out, and he gave it to him, and that would for free, and that would be the Ribis, the interest that he owes him. Now, when Beis Din goes to collect, according to Rebbe Elazar Shita, the malva got his Ribis, his 12 zuz of Ribis. Beis Din is going to want to take back from malva the 12 zuz of Ribis. The chutzah that he took for the 12 zuz of Ribis is usually rented out at 10 zuz. So the malva is going to be bothered, like, I'm renting it out. Why can't I just pay normal rent? Why you're taking 12 zuz from me? And I was happy to accept this chutzah, which is usually rented out as 10. I was happy to accept it in the place of my 12 zuz that I needed. because I'm gaining profit from the Ribis. So I was willing to let it go. But once I have to pay it, I have to pay the 12 zuz from my pocket because that's what Beis Din is extracting from me. So then when I rented that chutzah, why did I have to pay more than other people? Other people would have just paid 10. Why did I have to pay 12? And that's what is going to be the problem of the malva. Omar Rabba Haiman Demasik Treisar Zuzay the Ribis Bechavre, the person who is being tovei and trying to take from the person who owes him Ribis, 12 zuz. For Ograle Chatzah de Misgara Asara Ugre Nile Betreisar. That he, therefore, the Lova gave him a chatzah that was normally rented at 10 zuz, and he gave it to him for 12 zuz. So when Beis Din wanted to now take the Ribis back, ki mafkinin minei treisa mafkinin minei, we are going to take from the malva 12 zuz. Omar le Rav Acha Medifti the Ravina. Hey, there's somewhat of a problem here because the malva really could maybe tie us something. The reason why I was willing to rent the chutzah for 12 instead of 10, meaning ki'ilu to pay more for it, was because I was gaining from it because I was getting ribis. It was like I was renting it out. It was like for free. It was profit. So I was willing to give him a little bit off. So I was willing to say that this chutzah will cover the 12 zuz that you owe me. But now that I have to pay the 12 zuz, I don't want to rent this chutzah for more than other people would rent it for. I want to rent it for just the 10. Now that I'm not gaining from it, I'm not getting it for free. Now that you're making me pay for it, then I don't just want to pay what everyone else would pay, not more. That's what he would time, and that's what Rav Acha is asking to Ravina. Ravina answers, no, he won't get, that time won't be accepted in Beis Din. You had already analyzed this whole situation and you realized that you were giving it to him you were going to ki'ilu rent that chutzah for more than other people would have because you were going to use it as the way that you would collect ribis, and you accepted all that. The fact that this is how it ended up in the end, and you have to realize that you took all this into consideration. You're not going to, and that's it. The malva will have to pay the 12 zuz. Zok the Commissioner, Marbin al Hasachor. When it comes to rental, we can add to rental fees. The ain Marbin al Hamecher, but you can't add to sales, to the amount. When you want to sell something, you can't increase. Right? Okay, so what are we talking about? Kate said, his chir lo es chatzero. The person rented out his chatzah. For amalo, im achshav atanosein li harihu lecha pe'eser slayin. If you want to rent out my chatzah, so I'll give it to you for 10 slayin for the whole year, because really it costs like a seller per month. He's like giving him at a reduced rate. If he'll give him ma'achshav, if you want to pay me all the money for the year, I'll give it to you for 10 slaim, which is less, because if he would have to pay the normal rate, it would be a seller per month, and that would be 12 slaim. So if you pay me all now, instead of asking to pay me at the end of each month, then it'll be it'll be discounted rate for you. V'im shel chodesh b'chodesh, if you want every month to pay, so seller l'chodesh, you'll have to pay a seller l'chodesh. And you'll end up paying 1,200, paying 12 zuz, 12 slime. So that's mutter. To say like that is mutter. The Gemara is going to explain that the reason that's mutter is because rental, they're going to derive that rental, when the chiyuv of when a person has to pay the rent is not when you first talk to agree on the deal. I want to rent this house and I'll pay this amount. It's at the end of the rental. I'm not going to say it's the end of the year, but it's the end of the rental. And since it's then, so then when he takes this money early, he's not getting. It's not like he's paying, and that the money's in the hand of the maschir, of the renter. It's not like the renter has the money for the longer, and he's getting giving a discount of 2 sloim because he's paying the soicher for being able to hold on to the money. It's not like payment for holding on to that money, but rather because there's no need for payment at that point, because payment is only needed when there's a chiyuv to pay it, and the chiyuv to pay it doesn't come till later. So you can't call that what he did over here by charging him, giving him a discount on the rent when he would give all the money up front. You can't call that agar natar, wage for the waiting of the money, because there's no chiyuv to pay any for a rental until later. So it's only called that the master gave him a discount if he would pay it all at once. But that's not called ribis, and that's why it's muter. However, with a mecher, mochar lo es sadeh, if he sold him a field, the omar lo, when he told him, im achshav, if you would give me the field, he will receive the field. And he's asking him, the seller is saying, if you want to give me the money for the field now, ma'achshav, ata noisenli, hari hi shilcha be'elev zuz. And that's like the price of the field. Elev zuz. If you pay me normally, the way a field is normally bought, when I sign over a field to you, you give me the money. That's the way a mecher is usually done. If you give me that elev zuz now, you'll get it for elev zuz. If you want to wait, you'll get the field now, but you'll wait on the payment. You'll owe me more. So im legayrin b'shnayim aser mana also. And if you want to wait till like you'll have the field in your possession and you want to like harvest the crops that will come from it and therefore generate some cash and be able to pay for the field. If you want to wait for that, which will be later, but you'll have the field earlier, so then you'll have to pay me more money. Eser mana, shneim eser mana, which is like 1,200 zuz. So you'll pay like 200 zuz more. That's usher. And we'll see that the Gemara is going to speak about it. The reason that's usher is there's a chiyuv from the beginning to pay for the field. When he gets the field, you have to pay for it. So if he is allowing him not to pay right away and to delay the payment, and when he delays the payment, he asks a higher payment, that's ogar notar. That's wage for waiting for the money. And that's also, that's ribis. And all of this is really ribis d'Rabbanan, because here we're talking about ribis d'Oraisa is, as we spoke it out, is only with a halva, when you lend money to somebody. Here we're talking about selling things and renting out properties and selling properties. So the Gemara. What's the difference between the reisha with the schirut, with the rental that we said it was muter, and what's the difference with the mecher, selling of the field, that if you would delay the payment, it'll end up being and pay more for having delayed, then you'll pay more. And with rental, if you'll delay the rental, you'll end up paying more. What's the difference? So Rab of Rav Yosef to Omrei Tervayu schirus eina mishtalemesh el b'soif. Is he there saying a klal? That when it comes to scare, meaning over here the end of the year, it could be there v'hai kevan delo mata zimne lemigba love organotle. That and therefore, since it hasn't yet come the time, the chiyuv to pay for the rent, so then it's the fact that he's giving him. If he would pay the money now, and give him a better deal, like you let him pay less. That less of a payment is not that he's paying him payment for giving the money up front. Like as we said, the chiyuv to pay for the rent didn't yet arrive. It's not till later. Really, what's happening over there is that if you want to pay the normal way and pay every month a seller, you'll end up paying the normal amount, 12 sloyim. That's what the Gemara says. Shavua hu dehachi shavia. really, that's a seller is the normal amount that he should be paying. That what she told him, if you pay it all up front, you'll pay less. That's not. That's only that he's giving him a discount. Ribis is like, you pay me more than the normal. Here, there's no paying more than the normal over here. It's either the normal, or he's giving him a discount, and it's all before he actually has the chiyuv to pay the rent anyway. So it's not in the getter of Ribis. So it's this is the normal price. If you pay me ma'achshav, ata noisein lehari hu lecho be'eser shloim l'shana, and that's udiko muzil gabe, and it's only giving him a discount, and he's allowed to do that. The sefer with the mecher, where if he would pay at the goyrin for the field and delaying the payment, so that's going to be ribis. The sefer kevin de zvineinu, it's a purchase by him. And when you make a purchase, you have to pay from the time when you get the field. You're supposed to be paying from the beginning. So hilkach, if he's going to end up paying any time other than the beginning, that's a waiting of the money. And if he's going to end up having to, that means the buyer who's supposed to be paying it then is not being required to pay it then. And if he'll pay it later, he has to pay more. That extra payment that he's paying later is payment for having given him time, those extra months to pay. So hilkach, since that with a mecher you're supposed to be paying it from now, hilkach oger noter lehu the usher. That therefore it's payment for the waiting period.
You can make the exact opposite argument. The guy who is renting, he doesn't owe the money until the end. So the owner of the apartment says, look, you lend me 10 slime now. I'll have access to that for a year. And in return for you lending me that money for a year, at the end of the year, I'll give you 2 slime. That's interest. At the end of the year, you're going to owe me 12.
No, he isn't.
I'll give you, yeah, because it's 12 slime. That's the regular rental.
If you gave him 10 in the beginning?
So I'm saying you can state it differently. You can say, you lend me 10 now.
Yeah.
You're not going to owe me the 12 until the end. Right? So right now you owe me nothing. Lend me 10. I'll have the 10 for a year. At the end of the year, you're going to owe me 12, but you only have to pay me 10. I'm giving you 2. That's interest.
Why is he taking a loan if he's giving an apartment to live in?
The owner of the apartment is getting a loan.
Why does he need a loan? He just gave the person an apartment to live in. Why is he taking it as a loan?
I want to have 10.
Why is he taking it as a loan? The person owes him the money.
So I can do something.
He owes him the money, though.
He doesn't owe him yet. You said the whole point was he owes him at the end. He doesn't owe him at the beginning. That was the whole point you just made, right?
Okay.
So he owes him nothing. So he's giving him 10. What's that? That's a loan. He's lending him 10 to have for a year. At the end of the year, they're going to settle up.
There's no collateral.
It's a loan without collateral, isn't it?
And now you owe me. Now you pay me for the. I don't know if it works that way.
Now
I'm
you
not
owe
sure if it
me
works that way.
12, but you only have to give me 10. I'm giving you 2 as interest because you gave me the benefit of having that money for a year.
At the end of the year, so then why is that 2 interest? He owes him for the other 2 months also.
The renter owes 12.
Oh, because he had given him the.
So the owner says,
The renter will owe
you
the
only have
2.
to give me 10. That's the same thing as saying, give me the 12 you owe me and I'll give you back 2.
Yeah, but then the guy will pay 8 for the year.
No, he paid 10 for the year.
No, he's getting 2 back.
No, he says, give me 12, I'll give you back 2. That's the same as saying, give me 10. All right? If you say to me, give me 10, right? Or you say, give me 12 and I'll give you 2. That's the same thing. You're getting 10, right? So what I'm saying is, if you can say he's taking 2, and he's giving it as interest
No,
for
but,
the benefit of having the money for a year.
but the guy paid him 10. At the end of the year, he got that 2, they paid 8 for the
This case is not talking about getting back 2,
I'm
you know.
saying at the
Right.
end of the year, he's going to pay him 12. And then he's going to give him back 2. That's interest.
This is a case that you're developing, because that's not the case that we're talking about over here.
I'm saying it's the same case. In other words, just like you can say turn it around and say it this way.
To make it understandable, you mean? Because the way they said it was, if you give me all the money now, you don't have to pay me for the last 2 months, kind of. You don't have to. You're paying me 2 months less if you give me all the money now.
Right.
So that's like the masker giving a favor to the soicher for having given it all up front.
Right. Right. That's what I'm saying.
So
That favor, you can say that's interest. What is interest? It's a benefit that you get because you have the money for extra time.
So here we're saying that is mutter. And what we did here, okay, so let's go. Ogar. So here in the Seifa, we're talking about a mecher. Seifa came into Zivine Ninu, since it's a mecher, a sale, from the wide lines in the Amud, in the Gemara. And the wide lines in the Gemara were up 4 lines. The Seifa came into Zivine Ninu, since it is a sale. And the chiyuv to pay for the field is from the very beginning, when they are dealing in selling this field, and the seller will give over the field. He'll write over the deed to the field. The boy lemishkal dmei ma'achshav, you're supposed to pay the money right away. And if he asks, hilkach ogar noter le huva asa, so therefore, if he won't be paying that, now we're 2 lines up from the wide lines in the Gemara. If he will not pay that right away, and he'll get that extended period of time, that will be and he'll have to pay more for that extended period of time. That's going to be ogar notar, which is payment for the time lapse, because he had a chiyuv to pay it already, and he's getting and he is being allowed to pay it later, and he's paying more later. So that would be payment for the benefit of having extended period of time. Also, Omar Rava, Daku Ba Rabbanan, the Rabbanan checked this out, meaning in terms of the schirut. Why do we say that schirut is payable only at the end? And they found out Bahamilsa, Ukmua Akra, and they established that it was based on a pasuk that said in Vayikra, it says, Kischir Shana B'Shana Ye'imo, should be with him as a paid worker every year. Lo Yerdanu B'Ferech Le'einecha, and he shouldn't. Right. So here we see that it should be like a schir Shana B'Shana, meaning, and they derive from here, as the Gemara says, Kischir Shana B'Shana, Schirus Shel Shana Zu, Talemesh Ele B'Shana Acher. So they learn from here that Schirus is paid at the end. It could be this. There's a svor. It could be there's a svor to that an apartment. What is he if he at the beginning of the rental, the house is not his, and if he would be obligated to give the money before he even lived in it, so he's really ending up with nothing. He would not have the house, he would not have his money because he gave his money, and he wouldn't have had the living of the time period. He would have nothing. So maybe the Sforah would say that's why it should be at the end after he's lived there. Then he gives the money. So by now, at the end, he doesn't have his money and he doesn't have the house, but at least he lived there. Whereas with a mecher, at the deed of sale, in the beginning of the transaction, is written over to the buyer. So if he would not be obligated to give the money at that point, so the owner of the field would not have the money, and he wouldn't have the field. So it makes sense that a person buying an object like a mecher, a sale, a field or something, should be at the beginning, when he's getting the field, he should have to at least give the money. So then that makes it. So the Gemara says, "Weiter, Omar Rav Nachman, Tarsha Shari. Tarsha is a type of business deal. It's like credit, charging the person to pay later, and he's telling us that's mutar. There's a difference between Tarsha and Ribis. Ribis is when you say if you buy it now to you, this is a mecher, for less. if you want to pay the money later, you pay more. That would be ribis. That extra amount would be ribis. But the point is, if you don't spell that out, and all you do is say, "Oh, the price is 12 zuz, $12, and you only have to pay me in 2 months from now," that's okay. As long as you didn't tell him that if he pays it now, he would only have to pay $10. That's okay. So when Rav Nachman says Tarsha Shari, that's as long as you don't spell it out. The reason is because this is mecher. Mecher is anyway ribis derabanan, because ribis derais is with a halva. So since we're anyway dealing with a derabanan, as long as you don't spell it out, it's not so bad. In fact, the Gemara Esvei Rami Bar Chama LeRab Nachman on that. Rab Ukva Bar Chama LeRab Nachman. Ve'im legorin. We're asking a question on this. How can you tell me that you can just say the price and allow him to pay later, and that price will happen to be more than if he would pay it now? We just learned before that if he wants to pay at the time of the gorin, the amount which is more, it's also b'shnaim. Ve'im begorim b'shnaim also mana also. So how can you tell me that tarsha and shari? So Amalei hasam keitzle hachalo keitzle. That's the difference. If you specify in the beginning that if you pay now, you'll pay less, and if you pay later, you'll pay more, that's being kates. That's the case of the goyim. And with Tarshi is muter. When you don't tell them, all you do is tell them, yeah, you can pay me in 3 months and pay me X amount. That's muter. As long as you're giving him a price and you're giving him a future time to pay, that's okay. Omar Rab Papa. Tarsha Didi Badai Shai. Rav Papa said that his type of credit was definitely muter. It ends up that it wasn't definitely muter, but he used to sell beer, date beer. He used to make a beer out of dates, and that's what he did. So the time when the low season was around Tishrei and the high season was around Nisan, maybe because around Nisan they couldn't drink normal beer because it was chametz. So maybe around Nisan they would drink date beer. So the high season, so what he did was he would sell his date beer in Tishrei at the rate of Nisan, and meaning he'd sell it at a time when date beer is really cheap, and he'd be selling it expensive. The person doesn't have to give him any money, only has to give money in Nisan also. He's giving the beer up front and requiring the payment only in Nisan. So, and then he said that was muta because he tined that he was only doing it for the benefit of the buyer, because first of all, the beer would have preserved in its keg all the way until Nisan. He himself could have kept it until Nisan and made that extra money, and he didn't need the money b'ntayim he wasn't dachuk for the money that want to sell it cheap just to get the money currently, because he was rich. Rav Papa was rich. So he feels I'm only doing a benefit for the buyer anyway, so that's not ribis that I'm making him pay late. I'm giving him to pay at a later time, and I'm charging him the later rate.
That ignores the cost of inventory.
Of storing?
Yeah. That's a business cost. Keep maintaining an inventory is a business cost. That's the kind of benefit that you borrow money for, so you don't have to pay that. That's interest. I mean, that's a kind of interest
That he's getting for that.
He's getting a benefit because he doesn't have to store it. He can get rid of that keg, give it to the buyer. Buyer stores it for the next 6 months, right?
See, he mentioned it. He'll see. He says over here, my timer. What's the reason? Why is it so mutter? Why? My timer. Shichrai lo posid. My beer won't go bad. Meaning he has the kegs. He has the storage, and if he sells it, his storage is just going to be empty. So it's not an inventory charge over here because he has the place to store it, and he's just not going to use it. He's just selling it to the.
If he gets rid of it, he can put another keg in. He can make more beer.
And so his time is that he could have kept it around until then and sold it at the higher price.
He doesn't need the storage space. He's made all the beer he's going to make.
Sugei lo tzrichna, Anna. He doesn't need the money right now that would cause him for there to be any benefit for him to be selling it now. Meaning it's okay. He wouldn't mind letting it sit around until Nisan, all the way until Nisan, and making the extra money because he doesn't need the money now. He was rich. Who?
So do we imply from that if he did need the money or he did need the space, then it would be usher?
he wouldn't have the taina that right. He wouldn't have the time if he needed that money, or if he needed the money, and he wouldn't want it to wait around until Nissan. If there was some reason why he couldn't let it wait around to Nissan, and he's charging Nissan rates, so then it would be more like Ribis, that he's allowing the person to pay him much later and at a higher rate. But because he doesn't need it, and he himself could be selling it at that higher rate, so he's only doing it for the benefit of the buyer, to help him out, because he has no money to have it now. So he's giving him the beer now, just allowing him to pay it later. So I'm doing a benefit for the lokech. He doesn't have money, and I'm giving him the beer. So Omar le Rav Sheshes bred the Rav Idi le Rav Papa. He said to him, "So my chazi ma de ko ozalt basu didoch. Why are you looking at it from your perspective that you don't need it and that you're doing him a benefit because you yourself could let it sit around until Nissan and get the higher rate? So the fact that you're giving it to him now and asking the higher rate, that's not interest. I myself could have gotten that higher rate." Looking at it from that perspective, zil basu didehu ti'ilu havu lahu zuzi havu shokle ki hashta. If he had money, if the buyer had money, he could have bought it now for the cheap rate, and it would have been much better for him. It's the whole problem is he doesn't have money now, and that's why he has to take it from you on credit. And that is Ribis, if you look at it from his perspective. Hashta delays lahu zuzi. Now that he doesn't have money, shokle biyukra to likmeh. He's forced to buy it at the future higher rate. And that's a problem, and that's why we don't paskin like Rav Papa. However, Rav Chama had a business deal, and he said that his way of credit was definitely mutter. And what was his way? He sold wares, pragmatia wares, and he sold them in his location which was where these wares were sold cheaply, and he sold them at the higher rate of where they're sold more expensive in a different place. And so what he did was the people that bought them at the higher rate never had to give money until later anyway. They would take the merchandise and they would take it to that other place where you can get the higher price for it. And the whole time from that they would take it into their possession until they get to the new shuk in the other place, Rav Chama retains the responsibility. He's still responsible for the objects, that if anything happens to him, he's the one responsible. So it's still considered that it's still his possession, really. And then when he gets to the new place, these buyers sell the wares at that higher price. They get money. That money is considered Reb Chama's money. At that point, they become responsible for that money and for any wares that and then they buy new objects in that new place with that money, which is Reb Chama's money. And at that point, they become responsible for the money and for the wares. At that point, they become malvim, lenders, borrowers from Reb Chama, because that's when they become responsible. They became a loan. They became a loiva. They become a borrower at that point in that new place. Then they come back with the wares and they sell the wares in the original location for more money, and they make a little profit and pay back Rav Chama. So
wait, they sell for less than the original.
They come back to the original place with the new wares, and they sell those new wares
that they bought.
Yeah,
cost more. So now they're going to lose money.
No, they took those wares to the new place. They sold them at
new ones.
They bought new wares, brought the new wares back here.
So now but back here they sell for cheaper.
I don't know if it's the same type of.
It's different wares.
Different wares.
There's wares that sell for more here, and there's wares that sell for more here.
Right. Let's say. So they come back to the new place and they sell. That's where they make the profit. They keep some profit and they give back all the money to Rav Chama at the higher rate of the other shuk. And that's what they do, and that's moved, because by the time when they get the new wares in place B, they become borrowers. And all of the money that they have in their possession at that point is just a loan. So when they come back, and that's what they're borrowing from him at that point. So, and all that money that they have then is what they give back to him. So there's no rivers, there's no extra money being given to anybody, because they only become a borrower later. And that's good for them. And the reason it's good for them is because Rav Chama was a Talmud Chacham. And in the shuk in merchants shuk, they honor. They give benefits to the Talmudei Chachamim, and in the shuk they allow. They don't charge them taxes, and also they announce that everyone should first buy with the Talmud Chacham, and then go and buy from all the other people. So these people that are coming representing Rav Chama's wares get all of these benefits. So that's why they like to do it. So the Gemara explains. So my time is it so mutter. So it's good for them. They like that it stays in my reshus all the way until they get to that other shuk, place B. They sit them down in the street, and then they in the seat at the shuk, and then they machris to the shuk that everyone has to first deal with this person, buy from them, because they're dealing with Chama's wares. Chama is a Talmud Chacham, and he gets these benefits. The Hilchas of Kirav Chama, and that does work. The Hilchas of Kirav Elazar, like we said before, that the Beis Din does take, extract ribis that had been collected, and Hilchas Kirav Yonai Di Omar Mali Hen Mali Demeyan, like we explained before, that the perus, that in a case where a deal was made, that perus have to be returned to a person after a time. Money was given and then perus would have to be returned. Sometimes you don't even have to give the perus back. You can even give the money back. Let's say the perus were bought at a current shuk value at beginning day, and they would be returned to him a core of chita, like 2 months later. If a core for that with that same value, that amount that he bought with that X amount of money. So in 2 months from then, if the perus that he's giving back might be worth more than the money he paid for that. And so normal deal is you just give him back the perus, and that's the deal. And that's fine. But Rav Anna says you can not only can you give back the perus, but if the money, let's say you paid $100, the value of those perus is worth $150, you can give him the money of those pairs, and that's fine, because there's no difference. He could take that money and go out and buy those perus in the shuk. So there's no difference between giving them that amount of perus or the money of that amount of perus. It's the same. So the Halakha Mishnah, Mochar lo esasode v'nosan lo mixas domim. If a person made a sale and was selling a field, and the buyer gave him partial payment for the field, mixas domim, v'omar lo, and he told him.
Who told him?
The Moicher told him. There's a new girs in the Rashi. He changes slightly. Mochar lo es asode v'nosan lo mixas domim. For Omar lo emasai shetirtze haba moiser hamois shalecha v'tul sod l'shecha. Whenever you want, you can bring the rest of the money, and the field will be yours. Also, you can't do that. You cannot do such a thing.
Am I clear? What?
So he's selling a field, and the person gave him partial payment.
Yeah.
The mocher told him that the rest of the money that you owe me, you can bring whenever you want. Whenever you bring it, you'll have the field. That's us to do.
You didn't say bring me more.
Right. The reason it's us, Rashi explains, is because if whatever happens, what's with the perus on that field in the meantime? So who eats those perus? Whoever will eat those perus, whether it's the moicher or the lokeach, there's a tzad that it could look like it could become ribis. For example, if the moicher eats them, and then the buyer ends up bringing the money and owns it. We're talking about it. He said that when you bring the money, you will own it ma'achshav, from now,
Right.
from the beginning point. So if the lokeach brings the money, he owns it from the beginning. Now, why did the moicher eat perus in the meantime? Because of that time that he gave him to wait for bringing the money.
Right.
He's getting not only payment for his field, but he's getting all the perus that he ate in the meantime. That's ribis. And if the lokeach will eat those perus in the meantime, and he'll decide he doesn't want the field, he doesn't want to bring that extra money, and the moicher has to give him his money back that the lokeach had already given him. So then it's ki'ilu, that money that the lokeach had given the moicher was a loan. And therefore, why was the lokeach eating the perus in the meantime? That was the ribis for his loan. So therefore, it's awesome. This is the, so we go weiter. That was a mekach. Halvau al sadehu. A person gives a loan to a loiva, and the loiva gives him his field as collateral. The omar lo im noisein li mikan va'ad shlosh shanim hari hi shali hari hi shalo. So if you will not bring the money back within 3 years, the field will become mine. It's also the shanim of chazaka, the zman that it takes to make chazaka. If you don't pay me back the loan, the field will become mine. And it works. Bisus ben Zunin. And that's what he did. That's what happened with him. Chachamim allowed him to do such a thing. So, Dr. Gemara, mi oichel perus, in the first case, in the ratio of the Mishnah, who was the one that would be eating the perus in the meantime until the lokeach would bring the rest of the money? So, Rav Huna Omar Meicher oichel perus. The seller eats the perus. Rav Anan Omar Mishalshin esa perus. You take the perus and you don't let anybody eat them, not the Meicher or the loy, but you give it to a third party. Third party holds on to it until it's clear who it should go to, whether it be they belong to the Meicher or to the lokeach, but you don't give it to anybody. Below pligi, the Gemara says they aren't really cholik. Rav Huna, they're not cholik. Rav Huna and Rav Anan are really in agreement. They're talking about two different separate cases. That's why they're in agreement. So had Omar lechi mesis kni. So Rav Huna was talking about the case where the person told him that when you bring the money, the rest of the money, we're going back on the case of the Mishnah, when he told the Moiches told him, when you bring the rest of the money, you'll own the field. So the Rav Huna was going according to the case that when you bring the rest of the money, kini, you'll own the field from that point on. And that's why Rav Huna allowed the Moiche to eat the perus, because the lokeach wouldn't own it until later anyway. And that was fine. So it all depends on what they stipulated. And Rav Anan was going according to the scenario that he said that when you will bring the money, you'll own it from now, from the beginning point. That's why he had to put it in the hand of a third person to find out who would really end up deserving it in the end. Because if you would, like we learned before, that if you would let any one of them eat it, it could end up to be a ribis. Tony Rav Safra.
Wait a second. It said it was Aser in the Mishnah.
No, it was.
Was it Mutar? I thought it was Aser.
It was Aser.
Aser. So if it's Aser, then why are they giving explanations that would make it Mutar?
Because we have here like a memra where we see that there seem to be cholik, and we're explaining that they're not cholik. One happens to be holding that when he brings the money, it's from Makanu La'aba, from now and onward. And the other one is explaining the way we explained it in our Mishnah, the way our Mishnah was going. Rav Anan was explaining Ma'achshav, and that's why. But they're really.
I understand that they're not arguing. But what I'm saying is they're both giving explanations, which would make it mutter. But when it says it's Aser, it's mutter if he says
right.
You own it in the future.
This is a way of making it work.
Right. But they're contradicting the fact that the Mishnah says it's Aser. It has to be, if it's Aser, it has to be that they're not doing it this way. They're not putting in a third party. They're not saying on the future. Right?
Because they're asking who eats the pears. Nobody's supposed to eat the pears.
Nobody eats the pears, and then it shouldn't be Aser.
You're not supposed to be doing this. So no, Rav Huna is talking about a case that would be muter.
Right.
because he just said from that, because they were maybe talking about something else. They were not necessarily talking about our Mishnah.
Oh. Okay.
So Tani Rav Safra, the Ribis debay Reb Chia, that he was quoting a brisa from Reb Chia where he was discussing Ribis. So he said, Palmim, he has a bunch of permutations. Palmim shishnehem mutarin. Palmim shishnehem asurin. Sometimes they're both asur to eat the perus. Sometimes they're both mutar to eat sometimes they're both mutar to eat the perus. Sometimes they're both asur to eat the perus. The palmim shah moicher mutar ve'lokeach asur. Sometimes the moicher can be mutar to eat the perus, and the lokeach will be asur to eat the perus. The palmim shah lokeach mutar ve'moicher asur, and the lokeach is mutar for him to eat the perus, and the moicher cannot eat the perus. So Oni Rav Basre, that Rava, who was he was an Amara later, he wanted to answer up this like brisa from Svara, because the brisa was never answered about how each case would work. But Rava wanted to explain each case based on his Svara. So Pamim Shishneim Mutarin, to eat the perus, to Omar Le Kini Kishir Zuzach. That if that was a case where the Meicher told the Lokeach, you gave partial money, so you can eat perus, keneged the partial money that you bought in that partial money represents in the field. That's where what you can eat from, and the rest of the field, which you didn't pay for, I can continue to eat. Palmim shishneim asun, sometimes both of them cannot eat. To Amalei lechi maisis kni ma'achshav. That was where none of them can eat, like our Mishnah that he said, when you bring the other money, you will be kind of from now. That was meaning all the pairs in the interim period, nobody can eat because of the problem that we mentioned before. It might be ribis for both of them. How could that be? He told them, go bring the extra money and you will then own the field. Meaning from that point on. So that means that the moicher had the right to eat everything up until then. You'll own the field from that point on, but up until that you bring the money, you won't own the field. So the moicher had the right to eat the perus there, and that was when the lokeach couldn't eat the perus. Pamim she'alokeach mutar v'moicher aser de'omar le kni ma'achshav v'zuzei lihavu halvo gavech. Go, and when you bring, you're giving money now, you are kona from now. The field is yours. That's why the lokeach can eat, and the moicher cannot eat because the lokeach has the whole field. What's with the? We didn't have this. We didn't have this case above. And when you will, and all the money that you still owe me, that's a halva that I'm giving you a loan, but you own the field. The extra money that you still have to bring, that doesn't affect the fact that you already have the whole field. That's only a loan that I'm giving you. But the kinyan, I'm allowing it to take place already. The case that we had before, what is
4 lines up. The middle line says me'achshav. Isn't that the same?
Sometimes both of them are usher. Meaning neither of them can eat it, because you're going to be kind of from now when you bring that extra money. That's when both of them are asur. When this one is you will be kind of now, even regardless of the other money. The other money is only a loan that I gave you. So that's why that's a case where the lokeach could eat and the moicher could not eat. Man Tana, who's the Tana of Shnehem Asurin, that both of them cannot eat? The case where it would be when he brings the other money, he would be kind of from now. Who could be the Tana of that? Omar Rab Huna, Breda Rabbi Yeshua, Delok Rabbi Yehuda. They cannot be Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda holds Tzad Echad Beribis is mutar. If you have a case where it could end up going either way, it could end up being a case of Ribis, or it could not end up being a case of Ribis, and then it's mutar to take the Ribis in that case. So in the case like we mentioned, and if he says, bring the extra money and then you will become an achshav, and we were worried about who will eat in the meantime, according to Rabbi Yehuda, that wouldn't be a problem, because it's possible if the meicher was the one eating, for example, and we were worried that he would end up, the lokeach would bring the money, and it would end up owning the field, the lokeach. It would end up that the moicher was taking interest for giving him that time to come and pay. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, that's not a problem, because there is the possibility that if the moicher was eating the perus, there is that possibility that he won't come back with the money, and he won't buy the field,
Right.
and so then it wouldn't have been Ribis. So then that would be okay. So that case couldn't have been Rabbi Yehuda. To Rabbi Yehuda, ha Omar tzad echad beribis muter. Weiter. Mashchan lo bias. Mashchan lo soda. Person gave a loan and he took his house or his field and said, this house is collateral for the loan. And for Omar lo, the kishitir say lemoichram lo timochram elali b'domim halalu. So then the seller, the one who, the malva said that, okay, I'm giving you this loan on the basis of this collateral, house or field, and I'm telling you in addition, not only that, but if you do want to sell the house or field, you can only sell it to me with this extra money in addition to the loan that I gave you, with this extra money that I'm adding onto the loan. And altogether, between the loan and that extra money, it comes out less than the market value of that field or that house. In other words, I'm giving you a loan on condition that you give me a really great deal on this house if you decide to sell it. So that's usher. And the reason is because in the meantime, if that person who bought it, so they ask, okay, b'shavayin muter, but if he will, but instead of giving him less than his market value, if he will offer him, here's the market value, and I'm only giving you this loan if you sell it to me. If you decide to sell it, it goes to me, and he's offering him the market value. That's mutar. So, in the case where he's offering less money, if he will decide to sell it, so what happened? He gave him it as collateral, and in the meantime, the Malva was eating the perus on the land, and he decides that he does not want to sell it and he pays him the money back, he just pays him the loan. Just ate Ribis for having given him a loan. Just took Ribis for having given him a
He
loan.
owned the field the whole time.
No, the Malva took a field as collateral.
Oh, the collateral.
And then in the end, if the loiva will pay him the loan back, so the Malva was eating the perus on the field. So that's awesome. And however, if he gives him if he offers him the right price, in the narrow, medium wide lines in Rashi, 3 lines down, bidomim halalu, for this money, for these extra money, posak lo domim mu'atim, he gave him a little bit of money to add to the loan to buy the house with, and this is on the condition that he was giving him the loan. La'isif mu'atim la'isif lo al ma'is halva latzmisu lo imbo l'moikra. If the loiva wants to sell it, he is obligated to sell it to the malva with the value of the loan and with this extra little bit of money. And
is that extra bit? Is that more than
no, it's less than it's really worth. So
the extra bit brings it up to what it's worth?
No, it brings it up. It's still less than it's worth,
Still less.
and that's why it's usher. But if he offers the normal amount, then it's mutter for him to do that. Fine. And then you can't demand a loan even without anything happening. If he does it and it comes out less, and I'm only giving you this loan based that you will sell it, that you will usher, because it's Ribis. It's like Ribis. So Montana bidomim halalu usher. Who says it? Yeah, who says that's usher to do? So Omar Rav Huna, Breda Rav Yeshua, the Loki Rabbi Yehuda. They can't be Rabbi Yehuda because Rabbi Yehuda said Tzad Echad Ribis is muter, and this is really Tzad Echad because there is a Tzad that he will not want to sell the house and will never come to that the Malva is getting the house for cheaper because he gave him a loan. So Rabbi Yehuda wouldn't say it's us, or Rabbi Yehuda would say it's fine. To Rabbi Yehuda, Omar is muter. Mochar lo bias, mochar lo, sorry, selling a house or a field. Omar lo lekishiyu li mais hechziram li. Also, if the loiva says when I get money, I want you, I'm selling you this house, but I'm only selling it on condition that when I get money, you have to sell it back to me. So that's problematic. The kishiyu, that's usher, and that's also because he now has it. The person who bought it has it, and he's eating the peros from the field. And if he will get the money, the seller will get the money, he'll have to sell it back to him, and it'll end up that money that the original buyer gave him was only like a loan because he's getting his money back and he ate peros in the meantime. So that's like ribis for a loan, and it wasn't like a mecher because it's a normal mecher is because it was started off on the basis that if I get money, you have to sell it back to me.
But isn't that Shema Adar? And isn't that the halach anyway? That you have to sell it back?
No, there's no, it's not even a sale here because it was stipulated in the original deal that if I get money, you have to give it back to me. That's not a sale. That's not the conditions of a way something is bought. So therefore it ends up that it was just like a loan when he gets the money and the original buyer has to give it back to the original seller. And the original buyer was eating peros in the meantime. And so therefore that's like ribis because it didn't start off as a normal sale. It was never got the Shem sale. However, but if the buyer on his own accord will say, when I see that you get money, I'll sell it back to you. And that's coming from his own initiative. So then that's muta because when he does sell it back, then it's a sale back to him. And when he originally bought it, that was a real purchase. And so then the fact that he ate pears in the meantime, that's not a problem because it was his. And now he's willing to resell it back to the original buyer. Tana, who could be the Tana of that? Omar Rav Huna, Breda Rav Yeshua, the Loki Rabbi Yehuda. It can't be Rabbi Yehuda again because the Rabbi Yehuda, Ha'omar, Tzad Echad B'Ribis Muter. Because he holds Tzad Echad B'Ribis is Muter. And therefore, so to here, there's only Tzad Echad it could come out to be Ribis in the case where he would want the lokeach, the seller would come up with money and want the house back. Then it would look like a ribis. But if he never comes up with money and never asks for that ribis, and Rabbi Yehuda couldn't answer that. My shana ratio, it doesn't work, where the seller stipulated that, and when he gets money, he wants it back. And when in the sefer, where the buyer said, when I see that you get money, I'll sell it back to you. What's the difference? My shana sefer, Omarova, sefer to Omarle midaite. The sefer is when the buyer, from his own initiative, says that I'll do you a favor, I'll sell it back to you. I see you really want it, but it was a good sale. When the buyer sold it, it was a good sale. And when the seller sold it, it was a good sale. When the buyer is now selling it back to the original seller, he's just reselling it back, but there won't be any problem with ribis because the whole time that the first buyer was eating the peros, it was his. He had the right. And we'll stop here.
Just go ahead and answer my